All right, and we are live. So today we have a very special guest for us who's joining us here. His name is Kevin. He is one of our. And we are live. Just one second. So today we have I'm a getting very my special voice back. Guest for us who's joining us here. His name is. There we go. All right, tech issues. But yeah, we have Kevin here. He is one of Launch My Agency's clients. He's one of our CEO level clients. And today I just wanted to have this conversation with him. You know, a little bit about his personal journey of. He has a vast experience as well when it comes to, I'll let him go ahead and explain that himself, but he has a tremendous amount of experience in a different industry than a digital marketing agency. But today I just want to hear from him a little bit of his past experience and what really led him to having a digital marketing agency and kind of like where he sees this agency going. So without further ado, Kevin, if you can go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll take it from here.
Okay. I'm Kevin Meisenheimer, and I'd say probably for as long as I can remember, my passion has been health and fitness and wellness. And so I started, when I graduated undergrad in '92, I went right into fitness. I was a personal fitness trainer, managed some spas. And from there, I always thought I would, own gyms and manage gyms and things like that. And, along the way, though, I had a lot of clients who were chiropractors. And so I ended up going to chiropractic school. And then, so I graduated chiropractic school in 2000 and, immediately launched a practice and started, growing that business. But I ended up having a lot of health issues myself, unexpectedly, like an autoimmune condition that really threw me for a loop. So what happened is I would start a practice and I'd operate for like 3 years, and then I would sell it, and I'd take some time off and I'd learn a bunch of new techniques and go study really to try to get myself well. And then I would open another practice and I'd open that one better. But then I was still kind of sick. And so
it was your own practices?
Yeah, those were my own. Those were my own practices back then. And, so anyway, I ended up starting 3 businesses and selling them in 12 years. And, as they say, every failure leads to opportunity, if you look at it that way. And so, I did have successful practices that I sold, but the sales were very problematic. And there used to be a handful of brokers for the profession that specialized in chiropractic practice sales back then. And they just did a terrible job. I mean, it was almost comical how bad those sales were managed, and, what happened post-sale. I had to lawyer up a couple times to go get my money, and, all kinds of problems were with those practice sales. And so my wife and I, we've always been really creative, kind of entrepreneurial types. I love to start businesses probably more than just about anything. And so we kind of looked at each other after that last sale. I was recovering my health. It was like, maybe instead of launching another chiropractic practice, we should go into chiropractic practice sales. And so that's when we launched our current company, Progressive Practice Sales. And, we quickly became the biggest broker for the profession. Wow. And then, we're probably 10 times the size of the other guys now. And that's what I've been doing for the last
7-figure company, or maybe even
more? We're going to do about 1.5 this year.
1.5 million. Amazing. Okay.
And that's really a lot of fun. And we realized, though, that we've captured this huge market. So there's 80,000 chiropractors and we're one broker. And so we could keep expanding that current business, but it's a high overhead model. It requires a lot of team, a lot of people. And the part that I don't like, my wife loves it. She's doing endless Zooms with attorneys. She loves contracts and detail and that kind of stuff. And I love sales. And so my problem with that business, it just wasn't scalable enough for me. And I couldn't really control it as much. So like, you could have a couple doctors trying to transact, and they could literally use up all your time for 7 months and then that sale could fall apart. And I hate that. So, and there's a lot of, there's a lot of ups and downs. So we might have a month where 10 sales close, and then we might have 3 months where a bunch of sales fell apart. And so I didn't like that. So I was always looking for other revenue streams, other verticals that I could add that would, help me make it a little more scalable. Kind of at the same time though, we developed this huge base. We have thousands of chiropractors in our database. We realized, only about 10% of them at any given time are like ready to sell their practice right now. Okay. So our business is progressive practice sales, but I've got thousands of chiropractors that want to talk to me every day. I always have a full schedule of docs wanting to talk to me. I needed other things to sell them besides waiting till they're ready to retire to sell that practice. And so I started coming up with other verticals. We started doing more contracts. We started doing more financing and, helping them get money for equipment and expansion loans and things like that. And that really helped. But I was always
looking. Is that with your current company right now?
That's with our current company. So we got really good at consulting these docs, and we got really good at contracts and really good at finance and funding if they need money to get equipment loans and things like that. I was still looking for something else. And I've always loved marketing. The truth is I've always loved marketing. So even kind of going back to the day when I was a personal fitness trainer or a gym manager, I was reading like guerrilla marketing books and things like that. And when I was practicing back in the day, of course, none of this digital stuff really existed. But I was really good at marketing in the newspaper or somewhere like that. I was always able to, with marketing and with creativity, I was always able to fill my practices.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And one of the things I want to ask here is like with your current company, right, with a chiropractic thing. So it's you and Crystal, right, your wife. One of the things that we heavily push is partnerships. And, when it comes to business, what we believe is 1 + 1 = 11. So can you talk a little bit about like how you and Crystal's business relationship is? Like what does she do? What do you do? And like what both of you guys kind of like bring to the table in order for that business to really blow up, to make 1.5 million this year? It's crazy numbers.
I think that, I've been hearing a lot on podcasts and people kind of talk about this now that you need a lot of different types of brains to run a successful company. And so we are completely opposite. And I think I have one type of brain that's really needed. So I'm like creative and optimistic. I've always got a new idea for a new business, a new vertical, some expansion idea. And she's very linear thinking. She's really good at contracts. She's really good at detail. She's really good at dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And so we have that dynamic. We're almost too opposite. So sometimes we fight about it, if you can imagine husband, wife owning a business, but it works well because I get to do what I like the best and talking on the phone, customer service, selling the next deal. And then she brings it home. She's the detail person and the contracts have to be right. When lawyers are involved, she's really good at that.
So is it safe to say that you're kind of like the marketing and sales person and she's like the operator?
Yeah, right. We've got a big team. We've got about 20 people on the team now. I stay on the front, so I'm always on the phone. And, I'm always the face of the company. I meet the doctors as they come in as a cold lead or a warm lead. And I sell them on the front end. So I get them to list with us. And then she brings home their sale, with her team.
Okay. Love it. And one of the things the reason why I brought that up is because it's really interesting. I didn't know the dynamic you guys have, but it's very similar to our own dynamic. So me personally, I'm more of the front face as well, marketing, sales. Even if you take a look at this, right? I'm doing this. It's more like, kind of like showcasing our clients. But my business partner, Christian, he's the operator. He's the one responsible for all the stuff, all the clients and everything that we get in, all the systems, the process, the legal stuff that you were talking about. And our dynamic is perfect. And just like you said, we also sit down and we like laugh about how crazy different we actually are, right? Like I'm a complete different person, polar opposite, and he is as well. So like we're two different people, and then we all come in. But the best thing is the vision is the same, right? That's what really that's what's the most important piece, right? How you get there is not as important as long as we're aligned on the vision, right? He brings his skill sets, he brings his way of thinking, which is way different than mine. Neither is good or bad, it just is, right? But together we have that one vision. We're very clear, we're very crystal clear on what our vision is, what our mission is, and what our core values is in order for us to get that mission. So I can definitely understand where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, for sure. And, she saves me sometimes because I'll have a blind spot. I'm almost like too optimistic. I'm like, of course this is going to work. We should do it now. And she's going to always, research everything and say she's more the planner. But she has a lot of blind spots too, so a lot of times she'll be too linear. And I'm like, we got to expand or you're going to continue to work long hours.
100%. It's like, you need to have a warrior on the team, but you also need to have that person who's just very aggressive of and then there's that balance. Like sometimes it's a give or take type of situation, right? Sometimes it's like, okay, we'll compromise her, or no, we're not going to compromise her. And it's just kind of that perfect dynamic that really plays out. And a lot of the companies that we see, right? So if you look at Rolls-Royce was one person, Royce was another person. You look at there's so many examples of companies out there, some really big companies. Same thing like with Mercedes-Benz, right? And it's countless of other companies that have business partners with them, right? It's very rare that one person can just kind of do it all alone themselves. If you see in history, there's going to be a lot of companies that have the business partners. And a lot of times when we first launch a business, right, whether it's a digital marketing agency or whatever it is, people get so stuck up on I want to keep 100% of the equity, I want to keep 100% of the profits. But it's like when you add an extra person in, remember we were talking about 1 + 1 = 11 in business. It doesn't equal 2, right? So really being aware of that and giving up maybe some sort of equity so that you can really take it to the next level is critical. And a lot of the business partnerships, even the agencies that we work with, a lot of them have the business partnership dynamic just like Kevin does here as well, right? So that I just wanted to hit on that there. But Kevin, all this is really amazing, right? $1.5 million you guys on pace to do this year. You guys are crushing it there, 7-figure company. Really curious, and I'm sure the viewers will be as well. Why step into a digital marketing agency? Why? I'm not saying you're leaving that, but why kind of why not scale that specifically and just kind of step into a digital marketing agency, because it's a complete different business for you?
Well, I was really looking for a vertical that I could add to our business that was more scalable. And I got to this point, our phone kind of rings off the hook. And I got to this point where, we have really good conversions too. So when people call, we don't really lose business. If a guy's got a practice to sell, he's going to choose us. But that business requires a lot of team. And so I just looked at it and I got to the point where it's like, talking to my wife, I was like, if I double the listings and we double sales, you're going to have to double the team, because she's already working 60, 70 hours a week. She's just hands-on on, every meeting, teaching the staff. But those sales are, they're never going to be easy. They require endless phone calls, endless Zooms. It's all like psychology of the buyer. And, they have a delicate optimism about that sale. They're always trying to pick the sale apart, actually. So to get it to the finish line is just so much work. I think our team's putting 200 or 300 hours into each sale. So it's scalable on one hand. I could go out and get those listings, probably tomorrow, but I don't want to keep adding team. I don't want my wife to work more hours. So I was looking for something more scalable that I could sell these young docs. And we started kind of analyzing it. And so one thing that we do is we do a lot of valuations of practice. So okay, if a guy's not going to be ready to sell his practice for 10 years, he'll do a valuation with us today because he's curious about the value. And so, and they're a true deep dive on someone's financials, their profit and loss, their tax return, how they've managed the books. So we can see exactly what their cash flow, exactly what they spend their money on. And then, so we know them really well at that point, just presenting evaluation. We can also see all their pain points and all their mistakes. And so if a doc was not doing that well, I get to know, most of them become friends. There's a lot of phone calls. I get to know them. If a doc's not doing that well, it turns out, well, I tried 3 marketing companies and they took a lot of my money and it didn't work. And a guy might be in a situation where he's selling a practice for way less than he had hoped for, or he's even worse, exiting chiropractic or exiting the profession early. There's a lot of pain in this profession because it's Obamacare and things like that you hear about. It's insurance just pays for a lot less than it used to for doctors of all types. But then I would talk to these successful docs, and what I realized is chiropractic has really grown up in the last 10 years. So it used to be that when I was practicing, if you were doing 500 or 600 gross, you had a big practice.
Okay.
Now we're seeing a lot of guys do 2 million gross. And I started, looking at those practices and why are they just dynamo docs? Are they so much better clinically? Are they so much better personality? Not so, not at all. But they got really good at marketing. And now with digital marketing, that's where I started to believe that the guys that are doing 2 million, it's not really his personality or his skill. He's just a better entrepreneur. He got the best digital marketing he could. He's flooding his practice with patients, and that's it. That's the difference. And so then I started learning about some of the competition. There is some great competition in my niche. There's a couple companies that do great. They're charging a ton of money up front.
Right.
And they're going after a very, very specific type of doctor that's already kind of successful, very entrepreneurial, kind of top of his class type, charging them $10,000 up front and lots of training. And so there's those guys out there. And then there's a lot of agencies that I don't think are doing a good job. And I constantly hear about, people spending money on things that just didn't work, and it left them in a bad situation with their practice. So I've always loved marketing, and I did well in marketing back in the days before digital. I was always good at marketing in the paper, or we used to do these inserts in the paper with like a patient testimonial or something. I just loved telling the story. And so we were always able to flood our practices with patients in the past. So I've always kind of loved marketing in general. And then just as I learned about digital, if you do it wrong, you can lose your shirt or you can waste $3,000 a month. But if you do it right, you can explode a business. You can double a business very quickly, and you can double and triple and quadruple that business over time. And that was really exciting to me. I love verticals, new revenue streams, and selling digital marketing.
Yeah, sorry, but I'm curious, why do you feel like you're able to go that, you're able to double, triple versus just kind of do the traditional route? Why do you feel like with a digital marketing agency, you're able to do that?
I feel like I've seen it when it's done right. If a doc is getting a good, our niche is 100, I say doc a lot. Our niche is 100% chiropractors right now. So if a doc is hiring the right agency and they do a good job and they flood his office with patients, a good number for a chiropractic office be like 30 or 40 new patients a month would be great. You would grow at that. I mean, you'd have a hard time not growing if you got 40 new patients a month. And so I saw offices really scale up fast that were doing it right, and they would tell me about it, and they'd be so excited about the agency they found and how their practice was doubling overnight. And then I would see the opposite of that is the guy that hired the wrong agency and didn't get good service or whatever, and his practice was tanking. And so the reason I wanted to jump into it, though, is because of our philosophy of just how we take care of our clients to begin with. And I think we're at this moment right now with AI, everything's becoming, more and more digital, more and more automated. it's harder and harder and harder to get a guy on the phone that'll talk to you for 30 minutes and give you some service and explain things. And so when we launched Progressive Practice Sales, we were the full service version where everyone else was not giving good customer service. And that's why we took off like a rocket, and we just literally took over the industry.
Okay.
Like those guys are barely in business now. And so in digital, I feel like is like that. So someone's like a doctor, and he's been a doctor for 20 years, or he's in his 50s. He's not very tech savvy, but he knows he needs it. He knows he needs it to grow his practice. He wants to dip his toe into it. So they need a guy like me that's going to explain everything, that's going to do the extra phone call, make sure he fully understands it. He fully understands his guarantee, what kind of return on his investment he should get, and walking him through the steps to build the practice and get the most out of his career. So we're going to be different than the agencies that I see out there for the chiropractic profession.
Got it. So kind of being that superior, more irresistible than anyone else. That's like your differentiation.
Yeah, it's way more customer service, way more hand holding and consulting. And
right.
one thing that I'll be able to do that other agencies can't is I can do that deep dive on their financials. I can see exactly how they've been operating their business. And so constantly on the phone, docs will, talk to me for 30 minutes and like, wow, I just didn't know any of this stuff. I'm so glad I connected with you. And, if a guy's looking to sell his practice at the end of his career, doing a couple things right versus doing a couple things wrong, it could be $200,000 or $300,000. It could be $500,000 at the end of his career. And so digital marketing fits really well into that because it makes the practice much more transferable when he's ready to exit or he's ready to sell.
100%. It just adds to that multiple, right, when it comes to selling. Awesome. Cool. Well, I just want to, the viewers here, whoever's watching, towards the end, maybe about 5 minutes or so, we'll have Kevin, we'll do an open Q&A if you're up for it, Kevin. So go ahead and drop questions down below if there are any, and just let us know where you're tuning in from, right? It just helps with with the engagement with the live stream. So I would like this to be somewhat engaging. Just give us some likes and loves there in the comments, and we'll go ahead and transition into the next phase of this, right? So we know currently where Kevin is, like what his background is, why he chose a digital marketing agency. Now let's get a little bit into Kevin. Like we want to know, why did you choose Launch My Agency, right? Out of all the different other coaches or courses, why not go with them versus us at Launch My Agency? What was the differentiation there?
Oh man, I was reading about it. I've always loved digital marketing. I wanted to get involved. I'm not tech savvy, to point that out. So I didn't think I could get it off the ground myself. So I was thinking I could find an agency that's already intact and try to buy it. That would be the only opportunity. But I didn't think that I had the skill to launch it on my own with the technology and crafting the offer and getting it. I thought I'd make too many mistakes. So when I found your ad, I don't know where, maybe Instagram or somewhere initially, I signed up for it right away because I was like, this is my ticket. I'd already read about digital marketing, and I'm sure this as well. It's one of the highest ranked business opportunities going forward. Like, I think they say the next decade, digital marketing is going to be the place to be. It's like in the top 3 businesses that you can start right now. So very scalable. It's going to be here for the long haul. I know it's going to change, but it's going to be here forever. Businesses are always going to need new clients, but I didn't think I could do it on my own. And so when I saw your ad, and this was really kind of exactly what I was looking for, is someone to hold my hand and help me launch it. I've always thought since day one, if I could get a guy on the phone, I could sell him on my digital marketing package because I'm going to give him so much service and such a great guarantee that he's going to choose me. But I just didn't know how to launch it. And I didn't know how to find the right partners. I know there's someone can add $1 million worth of new business in your practice in a year, and someone else, you might just waste thousands and thousands of dollars. but I didn't know how to differentiate and how to find those experts myself and how to set it up. So this was a perfect find for me. Almost like a business in a box, very low risk.
100%. Awesome. So like you feel like that, kind of that, instead of you just going into the agency space and like buying an agency, you wanted to like, you felt like you could launch it with us, right? You had the team in place. So you want to talk a little bit about like the team. I know Kyle is personally working with you there, and the overall team. How did you feel? So one thing is like seeing something from the ad, but then one thing is also looking at like once you're in something is a little bit different, right? So what was it like the transition phase from what was what was told to you versus what actually happened on the back end there?
Oh, well, I can tell you definitively really why I chose you guys, because the initial ad and the initial offer was great, and it wasn't a lot of money to start your own agency at all, considering the upside. But every single person that I got on the phone with handled me the way that I wanted to be handled as a customer, and the way that we handle customers in our own company. So even from the beginning, the guy that was just like the closer, he was high level. And then when I joined and I met you guys, Christian and Zarar, you guys were high level. And then Kyle, who's been sort of like my right-hand man, kind of walking me through this, he's right high level, always answering my questions, always going the extra mile, always accommodating me with my tech deficiencies and other deficiencies. And so, that just really resonated with me right from the beginning, that you guys had put in the time and effort to make sure that quality was there of the people that you hired. And you could tell so much from just that.
Yeah, appreciate that. And what do you feel like has like gone right or even maybe wrong along the way, right? Because business is never linear. There's always going to be ups and downs, right? The last thing that we ever told people is like everything's going to be perfect. No, it's not. No, it never will be, because we're all humans, right? At the end of the day. So what are some things that went right, and maybe even some of the things that went a little bit wrong?
Well, the things that went right were with me is it was really easy for me to engage my creative brain right from the beginning. So you gave us a lot of assignments of like crafting your offer and do this research. And so you could really quickly learn what a great offer was and how to differentiate yourself from the competition. So all of your material is really great. It worked really great for my brain, how I like to sit down and write it out and brainstorm. And, when I did that, the answers were there. So that was perfect for me. The part where I wish I would have done something different is there was this tech integration and stuff. And that's what's it's probably taken me an extra month or so. What I would have done is I probably would have brought in a couple of my tech savvy team members right from the beginning and just had them set up all the go high level, all the software, all those things. Cause I'm having some delays from those things that I don't even have I should never sit in front of a computer. I just, and I usually don't.
I mean, the thing is, you're an agency CEO, right? You're the company owner.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we push very heavily is like, we don't want agency owners and agency CEOs doing every small little detail themselves. Sure, a little bit here and there, it's good to know what's happening, but being in the day-to-day like that, that's a big no-no, right? Because at the end of the day, like, you're not here to buy yourself another job, right? You're here to be the company owner and the company CEO so that you have other people who are able to handle some of those things for you. So can definitely understand and resonate with that. But is there any other highlights that you kind of want to that you want to address while working with us here?
Oh, let me think. It would be better if I was launched already. I've had more sales and
100%,
more.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about your goals, right? You want to make $100,000 a month, and like based on your past experience, you're not someone who's just brand new looking to launch a digital marketing agency. You bring a lot of experience, right? So that paired with digital marketing, like having this agency, what would that make you feel like? I know you want to make 100K, but what are some of the things like non-monetary wise that are basically going to allow you to achieve, like maybe personal or travel, whatever it is for you? Everyone's a little bit different, right? So let's go a little bit into that aspect.
Personally, it's really easy for me. I've got a successful business. I've got 4 kids, and they're all in sports. And my wife works long hours, and with the other business, there's just no way to get her out of that, because the type of people that I would have to hire, I'd have to hire 6-figure employees to take anything off her. Just too high level of work, too high level of conversations. You're on with sometimes people with Ivy League educations. Everyone else is a doctor or an attorney, So I didn't think I could scale us out of that, where we could have, way more vacations and way more of lifestyle. And with the digital, I thought that this is way more scalable. So I can be on the phone, I can sign up clients, but then as I create revenue with this business, it takes pressure off her. She can hire a couple other brokers, and that business can run, because we do kind of own that market. It's very niche, and we don't see a lot of other players, trying to jump into the market and help chiropractors sell their practice. But we did need to make our business much more scalable so we could ultimately have the lifestyle that we wanted.
Got it. So you're kind of going for the lifestyle element of the business.
Yeah, and the way I look at digital, if I served my digital clients the same way that we serve our progressive practice sales clients, with that level of service and availability, I've got thousands of clients. They all have my cell phone. So people text me all the time, questions, and usually I have to get them to the right team member. It's a lot of times it's not me, but that level of service, I thought that, I could really hang on to those clients and give them where there's no reason to ever quit digital marketing. There's no reason to ever quit my agency. I feel like as long as I'm producing, they'll stay with the service. They'll keep paying.
100%.
And I know myself, I know I will keep improving. So as digital marketing improves, there's going to be something new, 6 months, a year from now, there's going to be something new with AI or something that's working better. I will constantly grow and learn and add the new things. So I'll always be up on the cutting edge.
Completely. Yeah, that's super important, because 1 month in this space is a year in any other space, right? Whenever it comes to technology, things move so fast. So staying on top of some of these trends is key. Just like you said, AI, a year ago versus now is so many improvements, and who knows a year from now what's going to happen when it comes to AI. So we're really definitely also infusing that AI with our own digital marketing agency, and using that to the best that we possibly can when it comes to writing content, when it comes to even ads, how do we make some decisions on ads, when it comes to graphics. So there's a lot, even for client success. So we have an AI CSM. CSM is a client success manager. So we've tested that out. I don't know, Kevin, if you've gotten the chance to take a look inside of the curriculum that we have. We have Zarshan. That's what we call it. So it's my name and Christian's name, and that can basically give you access to our brain. So the whole curriculum that we've put in, if you ask any specific question, what's the best niche, or how do you craft an offer, or how do you run ads, all the stuff that we've talked about, instead of us personally messaging, you can just get that thing in real time, right? Because it has access to all the information that we've put on to our platform, right? Kind of like, how you as a CEO, we're training you also to become the CEO. So we have that portal there, and you can just use the AI CSM, just, go ahead and use it to the best advantage that you can, because we see people just use up a lot of the credits. They love it. So yeah, that's a really good use case, for having that. And you can also incorporate that for your own business, right? When it comes to maybe account management, or whatever it is that, these chiropractors, that they need maybe something in real time, and you may not be available. You can just train that AI chatbot to be able to answer some of those questions without you having to be there,
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to learning about and adding that feature,
Yeah.
So yeah, I think part of the reason I wanted to be involved is I saw the way that digital and technology is just snowballing everything, and I'm always amazed at technology that we have that we didn't have 5 years ago. Like we had something called Mobile Monkey for a while, where everybody that hit our website, we could get their email and their cell phone and reach out to those leads. That didn't exist a couple years ago, I think. And now we're getting 2,000 leads a month from that. And so I felt like I needed to get in the digital space and keep myself educated. And what I also realized, this is really important, is that because I have people that have digital marketing training in my company. Actually, they went to a Division I school and they majored in marketing, and they do some Google AdWords and Facebook and stuff like that with us. But I know from other consultants and other people that, well, there's like level 1 of being able to do SEO and Facebook and stuff, and there's like level 10. And then what I saw happening is that level 10 is going to change every couple of years, become newer and better. So I needed to get myself into a place where I'd stay educated and stay on the edge, because I can't afford to constantly replace employees. I wouldn't know exactly where to send them to get them that training and keep them on the cutting edge. So this is my best option, to actually own it, to be friends with Zarar. So Zarar is always going to give me the latest and the greatest in the digital world.
Absolutely. Love it. Awesome. Cool. So I have just like 1 or 2 more questions here for you. But right before that, viewers, whoever's watching, if there's any specific questions that you guys may want to ask myself or Kevin, go ahead and drop it down below and we'll get right into it, right after, some last questions here. So Kevin, if there's one thing that, if like one piece of advice that you've taken or adopted that's contributed to where you're currently at today, right? 7-figure company. You're also in this digital marketing area now. You're going to absolutely crush it there, make $100,000 a month. You have a lot of experience you bring to the table. So what's like that one piece of advice that you'd give to someone, who's watching this today?
Well, I had to think back over my career and think back. I've had a lot of ups and downs. Now, I've always been very driven. Since I graduated high school, I was a driven individual. So the one thing that constantly resonates, I probably got this from like Tony Robbins or someone when I was in high school, those early books that were out there, Awaken the Giant Within or something like that. But it was like, every failure is an opportunity, I think is the quote. And nothing's been more true than that kind of in my business life and my career. So, we have this beautiful business that sells practices, that owns the market, but it's really because of my health challenges that came about. So I just kept pushing and kept learning. And so after each practice sale, I sold the practice. It was really deflating. I took a couple of years off and, wasn't working and just trying to get well, but I just kept learning and kept learning and kept learning. But that constantly looking for the opportunity is what really got us here. And so another example is like those problematic sales, like those sales, they felt like failures at the time, but that's what made us look into doing it better. That's why we kind of own the market that we own today. And so that's my one piece of advice, that and just like, you should expect, I bet everybody on this podcast has a war story if they've been an entrepreneur for a while. You can expect those ups and downs. And so it's like every failure is an opportunity, and then just keeping the faith. So when you get kicked in the teeth and you're at the bottom, and that's often though when you're going to make the next big move that's going to really take you to the next level. It's that failure that made you kind of wake up and look in different directions.
100%. Awesome. Cool. And then any last thoughts or any closing thoughts from your end, Kevin?
No one had a question for me. Really?
No, there are. There's a few questions here, but yeah, well, like any closing
parting thoughts. I don't have anything profound to say. So maybe
I said a lot. That was really, really good. And again, I'm sure everybody, appreciates you for sharing your story here. And there's going to be a lot of people who watch the replay as well. Like we send it to the email list and stuff. So yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into a few questions here. So Jess asked, what's this stream about? So this stream is basically about bringing on, every week or every 2 weeks or so, we bring on some of our, clients who we are working personally with when it comes to, launch my agency. And Kevin is one of them. He is in the chiropractic field. And this is just there to kind of like explain a little bit about his previous story, where he's at, why he chose to have a digital marketing agency, and kind of like what he looks forward to, and a little bit of like how his experience has been working with us as well. So that's basically what this specific stream is about. Raza asks, how does one with no experience hire a team for his newly formed agency? So I'll answer this as well, and maybe Kevin, you can also chime in. But one of the things is like, if you don't have the experience in a digital marketing agency, it's best to just partner with someone else, right? So it's like whether you want to have a specific piece of like a white label, you can have like a white label service that can at least service your clients, or you can have something like kind of similar to like what we do at Launch My Agency. We have the whole system is like from, helping you come up with your research, come up with your offer, from there, your marketing help, like, when it comes to getting leads, closing help, setters, closures, sales help, and then also fulfillment, right? So it's like kind of depends on your goals, right? So if someone already has an agency, maybe better just to have like a white label partner, or if you're just trying to launch an agency, partner with someone who can help you get there, right? And that's exactly kind of what we do. But Kevin, is there anything else from your end that you may want to add?
Yeah, I think it's the white label side, and what I would recommend to anyone is that's where your constant education is. You're going to research. You're going to find some great white label partners, but then keep researching and keep finding people that are on the cutting edge, that are doing really exciting things. And you want to get a really good roster of those people. So I started out, I found a great one right out of the gate, but then, I'm talking marketing 24/7 these days. So I keep getting better and better and better resources on that white label side. And digital marketing, I think, is one of the easiest places to scale with white label and get yourself an education in a hurry from someone that's a real expert, because you're sort of like splitting that revenue. So you might have a lower margins, but you don't have the overhead. So it's a very scalable model.
100%. Awesome. And then we have, so how did you guys help Kevin craft his offer? Kevin, you want to hit on that a little bit of how he helped you? I know you talked a little bit about like some of the worksheets and stuff, but how was that personal one-on-one help when it came to crafting your offer, and to the level of, one of the things that people come to us for is like leads, right? And then we're like, hold up, no, we're going to step one step back and we're going to work on attracting those leads, right? And usually that's not the most sexy thing, because you have to build that offer up. But what we believe in is like your offer is your business, right? We put so much emphasis on that versus just trying to get leads, because people, what they do is just trying to get leads. They forget to realize, how can you attract those leads? Like, why would a lead even be interested in what you have if you don't have a grand slam offer, right? So Kevin, you want to go a little bit on how we personally help you craft that world-class level offer for your chiropractic industry?
Well, you have great collateral and great material. And so the one I'm thinking of, there's several worksheets on how to craft your irresistible, scalable offer. And I don't know if I'd ever thought about it to that level of detail before, but if you sit there and you sketch that out and you think constantly and in as much detail as possible about your avatar and then what their needs are, and then you need to come up with a unique offer. And so it walks you through with those exercises, like what's the unique offer that very, very specific avatar would respond to. And it's going in depth, and it's a lot of sitting and thinking and research. But once you hone in on that, you're going to come up with something that you're going to be like, yeah, this will work, because I know this person really well. I know they have that need, and I know this would resonate with them. So those exercises were really valuable. And I thought, I've read a bunch of marketing books in the past and I love those kind of exercises, but that really helped me hone in on to know that I could be successful with this, because I had something that I knew was not present in the market. that. And nowadays it's so easy to research your competition too. You know, if you go on Instagram and you look up marketers, you're going to be flooded with those guys. So you can instantly see what everyone else is doing in a couple of days. You know what everyone else is doing, and then you can craft something that's a little bit different. So Launch My Agency really excels at that.
Appreciate that. And yeah, the goal is really just to, you know, be more superior, more irresistible, and be unique than everybody else, right? It's not, you don't have to like, you know, invent the vehicle again, but it's like, how do you package that, right? So it's like a really, really good example is, you know, if there's two stands, right? So like one of them has, you know, both of them have lemonade, but one of them is marketed as, you know, cold, crisp, refreshing lemonade versus the other one is yellow water with sugar. Who would you rather go to? Even though it's the same exact thing, right? You're more likely to go to the lemonade, the fresh, crisp lemonade stand versus the yellow water with sugar, even though it's the same thing, right? So a lot of these things is just like, how do you package you know, your offer with the right words? And this is one of the biggest mistakes people make, is like they just try to skip this step and they're like, lead generation. And then maybe they throw a lot of money on Facebook ads or LinkedIn, whatever it is. And then they wonder like, oh, where's the leads at? Well, it's like you're marketing yourself as yellow water with sugar versus trying to use, you know, lemonade as this example. So that's one of the things that we really, really emphasize, because at the end of the day, your offer is your business, right? When you have a really grand slam offer, everything else becomes easy. Your marketing, your sales, your client fulfillment, everything just becomes a lot easier, right? So that's one of the most important pieces there. But yeah, with that being said, Kevin, really appreciate your time. I know we went a little bit over here, and I'm sure the viewers got a lot of value here as well. Christian says Kevin is a beast. Absolutely. Kevin's going to crush it here. But yeah, with that being said, viewers, if you're watching this, again, we like to go live maybe like once a week or once in 2 weeks or so. We bring on one of our clients. The last live we did was with Monica. So she's amazing, by the way. For her first ever client, she landed a $16,000 deal. And then she upsold that client into a $60,000 client. So one client she got $60,000 out of, right? So that's unbelievable, especially when it comes to like, she came to us, you know, a few months ago with no agency, with nothing, and she was able to land that first client of 60K. And then I'm hearing over the past 2 days or so, she's working on her second client worth $324,000. So insane. You know, I can't wait for her, you know, to see her success. And Kevin, you're definitely on pace as well. But yeah, with that being said, guys, go ahead and, you know, you guys can go ahead and ask any questions there. If there's anything after this as well, I know a lot of people are going to watch the replay for this as well. And by the way, whoever's interested in us potentially coming in and potentially launching your own digital marketing agency for you, just like we did for Kevin, just like we did for Monica, go ahead and type agency down below, and someone from our leadership team will reach out to you to see, you know, if it's a good fit. Just be a quick 5-10 minute chat. But yeah, with that being said, just go ahead and type agency down below if you're interested in that. But thank you very much, Kevin, for your time here and hopping on here with us.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Absolutely. All right. Take care. Have a good day.
Okay. Thanks a lot.